The family is an important part of children's lives. They provide discipline, encouragement. It teaches children manners. It provides them a place of hope and a place for someone that they can believe in and trust. But many times, the family doesn't allow the child to develop into the person that they want to be because of some of the dysfunctions that happens in the home. So often you hear the cliche that parents tell their children, what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors. Children who are in situations where they're abused, addiction goes on, alcoholism, they're left scarred, not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but for years to come. They're battling with the things that went on in the home. So today we're going to unfold, we're going to talk to parents, talk to children about what happens behind closed doors so that they can be healed. Oh, okay, we're ready to roll.
Camera's on?
Yes. Is the camera on?
Camera's on.
All right.
All right. My name's Richard. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and grew up with my mother and my sister, a single parent home. Had a lot of friends growing up. I started using drugs, I used my first drug when I was about 10. And I really didn't use drugs again until I was in my early teens. But when I really felt like I was getting addicted, it was more in my 30s, and I had been using drugs the whole time. But when you're around your friends and you're having a good time and that's what everybody's doing, you don't realize and understand or even see that you may be getting addicted to the drugs.
Some of the signs and symptoms of adolescents getting involved with drugs and alcohol is the oppositional behavior that shows up that you have not seen. It just comes out of nowhere, where you find that they are kind of pushing back on your expectations. Academic performance, you notice that their grades are going down tremendously and there is no answer for it. Negative peer influences. You're noticing that they're having friends, but these particular friends aren't coming to the house, and oftentimes the child is out in the community quite a bit. Another thing is just word of mouth, kind of listening to your child and his or her conversation with you around alcohol and drugs and some decisions that they're making and what they're observing at school. We're noticing that individuals are being introduced to drugs in middle school as well as early high school. So this is nothing new to them.
When I did the drugs at 10, I actually a friend of mine went to a company softball game with his mother and found a pack of cigarettes. And we were experimenting with cigarettes and stuff, and there was a joint in the back of the cigarette pack, and that was my first experience with drugs. When I was a teenager, the older I got, the less I wanted to listen, and I was not doing very well in school, and was kind of a hyperactive kid. I actually, my mother had sent me off to a 1-year camp in the mountains for kind of delinquent children. Stayed there for about 1.5 years, and when I moved back, my mother had moved to a totally different place, and so all my friends were in one place, and here I am in a strange place, So I kind of lost, my network of friends as a young kid, and it kind of hurt a little bit, Um, I was using cocaine was my drug of choice, alcohol, marijuana, occasional pills, but definitely cocaine was my drug of choice. And it's not a very good drug. None of them are good, but the attraction for drugs was that my friends, all of my friends, you know, growing up in high school, and you know, cigarettes, smoking weed, going out, trying new things. It wasn't necessarily the drug that I was attracted to. It was more the attraction of friendship and acceptance. And you know, it got to the point, you know, after years of partying and hanging out, that I finally, you know, realized that I was trying to get high by myself, and that's when my friends, and I started noticing I'm always by myself and didn't want to be around people while I was getting high. So the fun had disappeared, and that's when I knew I was definitely addicted to drugs.
Addiction can be defined as a biopsychosocial impact where individuals are struggling through their physical health, through their mental health, through their employment, those kinds of things. It has an unpredictability pattern to it. Individuals can't predict once they use kind of how the evening or night would turn out. There are a lot of treatment episodes involved as it relates to addiction, unfortunately. It is something that once an individual gets, it does not go away. It, however, can be arrested.
I was at the point in my life where I was sleeping in the car 2 weeks out of the month, every other month or so. You know, I would make amends with certain people, and they would trust me enough to stay until they realized that I was lying to them, and so it got to the point where I was running out of options, because I didn't want to necessarily be homeless. I mean, nobody wants to be homeless, but it was heading that way real fast. So my grandfather was real important in my life. My father wasn't around. I did see my father on occasion, but it was almost like I didn't know who it was when I was a child. So my grandfather played the father figure role. I actually stayed with my grandmother and grandfather for a couple months after school when I was in middle school. And, you know, he kind of was the man. He taught me how to be a man. He taught me how to, you know, fix things, how to go fishing, you know, how to chop wood, how to build fires, everything that a typical man's supposed to be able to do. And in my early teens, I moved in with my father, and being that I didn't really know him that well, for him to tell me what to do, I took offense to that, because he was never there before to tell me what to do or to guide me. So I ended up moving out, and that's where, you know, pretty much I just did what I wanted to do and hung out with people who accepted me for who I was, and, you know, one thing led to another, and here I am today. I feel like when I moved in with my father, because I lived with him 3 separate times, and I feel like the first time I lived with my father, I wanted to bond, but I felt like I was more of a burden because there were other children in the house, and now I'm another child in the house, and I felt like I was more of a burden than I was a son. And the second and third time I moved in, I really didn't try to bond so much. It was more, I was forced to go there, didn't want to be there, you know, and I ended up only staying for a couple months, and I moved out. So I ended up moving out on my own when I was 16. I was working at a little pizza place, moved in with some friends. And that lasted, that's what I did. Most of my life was bounce around, live with friends, job to job. And when I had kids, I moved in with their mother, and that was 13, 15 years ago. And I've tried real hard to make it work, but you can't make one life work with the life of drugs. They don't work together. So you have to choose one or the other. I was using drugs before I had kids. I'd been using drugs almost 15 years before I had kids. And I was using up until they were about 12 and 14 years old. They know that I'm in recovery now, and they know what's happened to me in the past, but I never let them see or know what was going on. I tried to hide it. I hid it very well from them, anyway. When I really had the urge to use, I would try to find excuses to get out of work or get out of the house. There were times when I would call home and say I'm on the way home from work, and I wouldn't show up for 2 days. Or I would go to the store to get bread or milk and wouldn't come back for 2 or 3 days. And just turn my phone off, and because I knew what's going to happen. I knew people were going to start calling, and being on drugs, I didn't. You don't want to deal with those things, and you don't really think about the aftermath or the consequences. And so I definitely was not fully involved like I should have been. I would be at home or cooking dinner, and I would tell my kid's mother that I needed to go to the store for something, make something up, and I wouldn't come back for 2 or 3 days. And that would be one of those times when I'm finished and out of money that I would realize the guilt would start flooding in, because I knew that I had just lied. I knew my kids were sitting there waiting on me. I knew that she was waiting on me. And, so all the emotion, the guilt, the stress comes in right behind that, because all of a sudden now you're thinking about what you just did. So when I returned home, I usually tried to return home when nobody was there. And I would have, I would have a day or so to think about, before I went home, to think about what I was going to say, what kind of lies I was going to tell, how I was going to manipulate the situation. And I knew that when I went home that I would get screamed at. I knew that, I would get cussed at, but I knew it would also blow over. I've put myself in dangerous situations, going to get drugs, and the people that I was dealing with trying to get drugs, and driving around high. I was definitely putting others in danger. I feel like I hurt myself the most. I definitely hurt other people around me, lying, stealing, but I think lying to myself, getting myself in trouble, people telling me what they see from the outside and me not realizing or accepting what they're trying to tell me, and just years of stress, anxiety, drug addiction. It definitely, I think I've hurt myself the most, because I'm now 43. trying to get my life together, so it's been a long road.
My addiction, I was a pill popper. I loved opiates, the party drug Molly. I was into ecstasy. Drinking was like the last thing I did, and smoking marijuana, but mostly the pills, like the uppers, to keep me up and keep my mind kind of free and in party mode go all the time. I was 15 years old when I started taking pills, but I started drinking when I was 11. I got my drugs from friends that I've known. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was in middle school, so that's how my opiate addiction really started, because she had all the pills in her cabinet and she never took them because she didn't like the way they made her feel. So I took one for a headache one day, and that's kind of how my opiate addiction felt. It was like I was free. Like, I was like the best pill in the world. So I began taking her pills without her knowing. She didn't have no idea till later on in life. So that's how I started, really, with the pills. And when I go to parties, people will have like ecstasy pills and stuff like that, or I meet different guys and they introduce me to just new drugs that they were selling and stuff like that. So at the age of 11, kind of going on 12, my first cousin, he sexually molested me, so he kind of introduced me to my first drink. Like, my family, like, it was dysfunctional. They always drank heavy liquor, like moonshine, Crown Royal. It was always at different barbecues, parties and stuff, so it was easy to get, but I never really paid much attention to it till after, my cousin kind of, gave me this cup to drink, and, I liked the way it made me feel, kind of made me forget about things and relax, so that's kind of how I got into the drinking.
The reason that individuals find themselves involved with drugs, one is just to experiment or to see the impact or the effect of the particular drug. Oftentimes they early start on with cigarettes or marijuana or alcohol. Another reason is to escape. Some individuals have experienced either a trauma or just at a bad point in their life and find themselves having to use in order to cope with some of the challenges that they're having. There's some individuals that have such an impact socioeconomically that they don't see their life getting better and thereby needing some sort of substance to alter their mood in order to deal with their current circumstances.
My family never really knew about me getting molested by my cousin. They didn't know till I was like 21 when I told them, but I kind of always kept it in it because my family was dysfunctional, and I know how they get when they hear stuff like that. I know how the fights could break out and, some possible shooting, and I just didn't want to start that, and I don't really know why I never told anybody sooner, but I wasn't threatened, but I just wasn't comfortable. I didn't know how to even tell anybody that, or really think, I knew my mom would believe me, but I didn't know if anybody else would believe me. But I didn't think about it, really. To be honest, I don't know if that, sexual abuse ever really affected me. Probably now it did, but then back then it didn't really. I don't feel that it kind of hindered me and got me started in my addiction. I just like drugs. I like to drink. I like the way it made me feel, I guess it's kind of how I was brought up. My mom I was like a military brat. My mom was in the military, my dad was. They were divorced when I was like 5 years old. The memory of them I have is them yelling at each other, and I'm sitting at the door. And my mom always taught me to be independent, and my schoolwork comes first and nothing else. Do what you want, but just have your grades right. Do what you got to do. And I had freedom after that, so and she never really had personal conversations with me. How you doing? How you really doing? How you really feeling? You know, what are you going through? So I kind of feel like I had to have that bottled in, you know. So I think it was kind of my upbringing in a way, even though it's good to be taught how to be independent and, you know, don't depend on anybody, but I really couldn't let my emotions out with anybody, especially my mom. I wanted to, but I couldn't, so. Well, growing up, I just saw most of my family drinking and smoking marijuana, but I never saw any of them. I heard of them like smoking crack and stuff like that, but not popping any pills. The pills is kind of something I picked up on my own, or, you know, just trying things out. I always had to try things, you know. I'm different now. I could try things and be all right, but it just takes that one time. In the situation, in the mind frame that I was weak. So, and then it just took over.
Drugs in the family today are very prevalent. One of the indicators of potential substance abuse is where parents allow alcohol and drugs to be freely in the home. Some challenge that we're having is that most of the individuals are starting at a very young age because their parents have normalized the use of drugs and alcohol. Our challenge is to keep these individuals away from those kinds of things. There are things called protective factors. Those are love inside the home, education, self-esteem. Those are those protective factors that you want to employ to keep around the child. There are non-protective factors where there is no parenting going on in the home. The rules are either very rigid or very loose, and those individuals, the probability to make them susceptible to possibly get engaged in substance abuse.
I went through 15 years of addiction. 15, I think. You know, I didn't know I was really addicted to drugs till my mom found out I was addicted to drugs. I was 23. I mean, I didn't really see it as a problem, knowing that I'm destroying everything, I'm spending all my money, I'm not profiting anything from this, I'm partying, waking up broke, I'm in these abusive relationships, you know, I'm just still kind of in denial, or, you know, it was never really talked about, you know, kind of where I was growing up and where I went to college. It never came up about addiction. It was never really talked about. So, you know, everybody was doing it, so it was kind of normal. And I still maintained, but I still was losing at the same time, emotionally broken. But like until my mom actually said, "You have a problem," you know, and threatened to take my son away from me, you know, it kind of clicked. And then I kind of look back like, you know, maybe I am. But I just never really thought about it because it was normal to me. I think a person can become addicted to drugs as quick as one time. It may take several. It's just depending on how your emotional state is. Of course, mine, I was at a weak moment and it kind of felt like ecstasy, like euphoria, like I was on top of the world. So it could start as easy as one time. And then after that one time, it's hard to get past it. So it's just good not to do it at all. But it's definitely easy, just one time.
The addiction is a disease. Oftentimes, when one uses the word addiction or abuse, they use it interchangeably within the field. However, early onset of using starts with these stages from experimental all the way through social abuse, misuse, and then to dependence. Once the individual gets to the dependence part, then that's where they cannot go back to beginning to being a social user again, because now the brain has become addicted, and now that process is now on what we call hijacked. The brain has then been hijacked.
I was, after like my first time with the party drug Molly, I actually lasted for 3 days. I was always kind of like chasing that first high I got off of it. So that's kind of what my downfall was, because I was spending money trying to chase that one high, but you know, your body kind of gets immune to it and you gotta keep going and going. You're never gonna get that first high again. So after the Molly, I would start drinking, because after you take Molly, I mean, you can't really get any higher. So I would just smoke marijuana all night, smoke cigarettes and drink. I mean, I can drink over the legal limit and not feel it, because I have that drug in my system. It's not really, it just keeps you kind of more activated and going and, you know, more free. You'll just be up for days. I don't know if I like to being up for days, but, you know, just the feeling. I didn't really have to think about anything. I kind of blocked everything out. Everything went away, and I was just really in the moment. My son has seen me in a lot of reckless behavior. His father was an alcoholic, and he would actually beat me in front of him, holding him, punching me. I would go buy drugs with my son in the car and pop pills with my son in the car. You know, he didn't really know too much then, but the abuse he remembers. Sleeping in the car, he remembers. He's seen me argue a lot with all of my boyfriends, fighting. So he's seen a lot. He's been around a lot of it. I have been sober for almost 2.5 years, almost 3 years. You know, it's joy. Now he wants to be with me. You know, he's comfortable around me. So I don't think as of now that he remembers too much of anything, because he never says anything, or he doesn't say anything to my mom, because usually my son will talk. He will let you know what's going on, what happened. He'll tell it all. But, you know, so far I don't have to deal with that. And I don't know if it'll come up, you know, later on in his life, but right now, this is unconditional love.
There are quite a few disappointments that children are faced in the home due to the expectation that children are hoping that their parents are supportive, that there are rules in place, that the word no is inside the home, that there are certain boundaries that are going to go on, that there are expectations that should be consistent on a daily basis for children. Children are then left, once they realize that that support is not there, then are left to defend on their own or find outside answers, unfortunately, to some of the struggling questions that they're having about life and about themselves.
I remember one time I was so drunk at this bar I was a regular at, you know. I was so drunk and so mad at my boyfriend that I threw a pool ball off the table trying to hit him, and I almost hit a customer. I got banned from the bar for like 30 days. I remember I was in front of a club so drunk and mad, and I was high off Molly. I skirted off in my truck and I almost hit, you know, just an innocent bystander. And I was just really reckless and endangering myself and other people, driving drunk all the time, and my whole addiction was reckless. I didn't care about anything. All that matters is getting that next high to feel free again, you know. But it's never nothing like that first hit. It's like you're chasing it after that. During my drug abuse, I had went from 147 to like 110 within 30 days. I mean, I was never eating. I was on the go all the time. I mean, I was just feeding myself with the drugs. You weren't hungry. You know, I was always on the go. But I constantly, you know, stayed hydrated, of course, because you have to stay hydrated. I wasn't aware of any, like, health issues that I was going through, but afterwards I found out, you know, that I was vitamin deficient. I was just malnutrition, really. I was doing really bad. My hair wasn't growing, everything was just going wrong. I didn't notice it because I was in like another world, but it'll take you by surprise. I never even noticed the changes, the weight loss and everything that people were saying, man, you look bad, you losing all that weight. I mean, I didn't notice it. I tried to keep myself up, but I still didn't look good. Looking back at those pictures like, that was me? Like, your mind's not there. You're not thinking about how you look really. You're thinking you're keeping yourself up, but you're not. I wasn't aware of any of it. Well, how I felt on the inside, it did resemble how I looked on the outside. I was terrible, I was broken down, and I looked like that on the outside. Like I was just drained of life, and skinny, no weight. My self-esteem was low. I was kind of lost.
My name is Daryl, and my attraction for drugs was mainly, in the beginning, it was just to be fitting in, because everybody else was doing it first. I was the youngest one in my little clique, and because I always hung with older folk. And so they was doing it, and eventually I just went ahead and asked could I try it. They kept on saying no, but then they did let me try it because I thought they were older. So I tried it. But then as it progressed, it became more of, there was the euphoria, I guess, where it made me feel more confident. I could do things that my mind had me thinking I could do things that I couldn't do when I was sober. So it had me tricked. And then as it progressed on, when it got a little more into it, it just became habit. It was just something I was doing and didn't even realize I was doing it. And then after the habit part started coming, then it became, I was dependent on it. And that's when it came to the point where I made sure the night before I would have some for me that morning when I woke up, because I had to have me a beer when I woke up that morning just to get function. You know what I'm saying? Or if I didn't have one, I'd wake up extra early so I can go get me some, or I'd go to someone's house that I knew had some. Or I'd go to the liquor house where I could run me a tab, because I had tabs all over town. Everybody knew me. My face was good, and they knew that I was working, that I could pay the money for my alcohol. I mean, I didn't have to have no money for no alcohol. They were just a given. I just had to show my face, and it was always given to me, and then I paid my debts to it. When I had my first drink, I believe I was like 11 or 12 years old, if I'm not mistaken. We know how back in the day we used to have little parties and everything, and me and my cousins and them, we would sneak the little beer out and go around the house and drink it, doing that thing like everybody do, because my parents and my uncles and aunts, and they wasn't really paying no attention to us. And then, of course, when everybody pass out, everybody leave, it'll be half beers left open and stuff of that nature. We cleaned up the house. We'd go ahead and chug them down real quick, me and my brother and my cousins. We were just kids. We didn't think nothing of it. We just was just drinking it because it was there, just to be cool. We gonna get that beer, man, go get it. And we would drink it, that's all. Little did I know, it was the demon. I wish I would have never did it, but that's just a trial and error thing, I guess.
Fortunately, there's a misnomer about alcohol because of the social acceptance of it, that it's kind of not recognized as a significant issue. Alcohol is a drug. It does have the same working mechanism, the same patterns of the processes of becoming an addict. There are no difference between alcohol and drugs.
My number of years in addiction were, I'm going to say, from the time that I graduated in 1989, that's when I was 18, and I'm 46 now. So that's been, I was 42 years old. So that's been about 26 years, 26 years, 25, 26 years. that I was in addiction. Like I would tell you, that's what I would tell you, because the cocaine and the marijuana, that wasn't, I didn't have to have that. What I had to have was my alcohol. I know once I woke up in the morning, I had alcohol. Everybody know when I walked up, they said, when I would ride up on my bicycle, because I didn't have no car, I ride up on my bicycle, they done took my license, remember? They would know when I got off my bicycle, I was reaching for my inside sleeve on my arm, and they knew I was getting ready to pull out a 40. I would go somewhere where I knew somebody would have the blunt that didn't have the beer. So we'd hook up together. You drink mine, I smoke yours. That's how I did then. Then eventually we'll be like, well, you ain't got no powder? I don't know, we'll see if we can call what's name and get some powder. You know, that was just one of them. Powder wasn't nothing. That was just like every 2 or 3 weeks. That was like a once a week thing, you know what I'm saying? There was plenty of times I told my children that I was go be at places that I didn't show up, and due to my addiction or being drunk or just passed out or just wanted to go somewhere else. One, I miss my son. What was it, when he left from his 8th grade graduation? I believe that's when it was. I didn't get to make that one when he graduated from the 8th grade. And my oldest son, because he's from another, I got him by another female, another baby mama from my wife. And there'd be times I'd tell him we'd come to pick him up, and we didn't go pick him up because I had been drinking. Even though I would have my wife right there, so I said we're going to go pick him up, and I'd be like, no, we're not going over there. And you know, that was just because I didn't want his mother at that time to see I had been drinking. And there was times when I told them that we would go take them to Carowinds, and then I'd be done drunk up the money. I ain't never take them. Well, we planned on going anywhere. If I planned on buying them just little Halloween costumes. Then I said, boy, I can't buy, how we put this makeup on. Because, I wanted to use the money to buy my alcohol. Some of the reckless situations that I put my children in and myself in were driving while I've been drinking. I did that. Got 5 DWIs over the course of since 1990. And I would still drive. I would still take my kids with me to the liquor houses. Because like I said, I didn't think I was drunk. Even though I would wake up in the morning and drink me a beer, then later on, come about 11 o'clock that morning, like on the Saturday, I'd get up about 7 o'clock, drink me a beer or something. Then about 11 o'clock, I'd be like, come on, take you with me, because my wife would probably be cleaning up the house or something, or we wanted me to take the kids with me anyway, so I'd take one with me, to keep the hush down. That's all I was doing, so she wouldn't be fussing at me for leaving all the time. And that's all I was trying to get out the house. So I'd say, come on, come ride with me. I'm gonna take him with me, so she wouldn't say nothing, as long as I was taking a child with me. So I would take my son with me. I'm going to the store. I'm going to the store, just getting the beer. But next thing you know, I've been gone about 3 hours, because I done went from this liquor house, got me a couple of drinks out of here and the beer, then went to this liquor house, got me a couple of drinks and the beer. I just thank the Lord that I didn't ever have any wrecks. He didn't allow anything like that to happen. I mean, I ain't hit nobody. I didn't run over nobody. I didn't wreck no vehicles. I didn't do none of that. I woke up in the vehicles plenty of times with them still running. I'm in the parking spot at the house, and I wake up, don't know how I got home, and then I get out, look at the car, ain't nothing hit, ain't no dents or nothing in it, and I have to thank him for all the time that he had brought me home. A couple of times, you know how you get drunk, like we always do, we get the munchies. So I go up in there, try to cook me something. Lord knows, I go over there, put something on the stove, then I go over there and lay on the couch. Next thing you know, the alarm going off. I smoke everywhere. I got the fire department knocking on the door. I done had that happen to me 3 times. Kids back there asleep. Don't nobody even know nothing about it. I don't know why I had the kids a couple of times. I be having the kids a couple of times. I didn't know why. But stuff like that. Was there any shame when I would be around my kids drunk? Yes, it was a lot. I used to see it, and I would try to turn it around on them. That's where I was, and cause they'd be like, I'd be like, they'd be at the football game or something, and then I'd show up. Like I said, I would show up to the football game. You know, the practices. I show up, I would be drinking at the practices. But as the season progressed, you know, I done got complacent with the coaches and everything. So I would start showing up a little bit intoxicated and all that stuff, running up and down the field. And I could see how I look over there, and then when I go to hit my son on the shoulders or something like that, they would turn their shoulders or walk away, stuff like that. Or then when they would be asking me when I stopped going, they'd be like, Daddy, you going to the game? And I'd be like, no, I ain't going to the game. I knew you wasn't going to the game. He done started drinking. I done heard him say that. He done started drinking. I knew he wasn't going.
The impact that these family systems have on children is that each child is going to have to play a role in these particular family units. And unfortunately, they go on to adulthood. For example, the lost child within this addicted family oftentimes recognize the dysfunction early on and moves away and to never come back to the home because of the dysfunction and some of the trauma that is going on. So these are long-term impacts as it relates to a dysfunctional family.
The way I was looking was, in fact, a resemblance on how I was feeling on the inside. Because it was eating me up on the inside and I didn't even know. It was more like one of them silent killers. And that was the sad part about it. I could see on there, when I looked in the mirror when I first got here, I could see how everybody else saw me and not how I saw me. See, I saw me as not having a problem. Everybody else had a problem. And that's why I said I had to break down, and I cried like an old baby. I said, I don't want to do this no more. And it was mainly because I wanted to really say I was sorry for all that I've done. And everybody that I told I was sorry to, then I all came back to them, boy, we done forgave you a long time ago. We just was thankful that you went and got some help. You know, which they had been saying earlier in my life, you need to go get you some help. But you know me, I was just bullheaded. I don't need no help. Y'all the one got the problem. Y'all quit messing with me. There won't be no problem. You know, I was saying little stuff like that. You know, I can work. I'm the man of the house. I can do this. I can go out here. You know, I was saying little things like that. But yes, I was getting eat up on the inside, and it was reflecting on the outside.
Well, I started drinking. And using acid, the hallucinogenics, in my 12th grade year in school. So after that, after the acids and the cocaine, the marijuana, and the alcohol, I used that for a very long time, but then up until about the age of 23, that's when I started dipping and dabbing with the heroin along with everything else. Because I was just a connoisseur of drugs. You know, if I did it, it made me feel good one time, I didn't stop doing it. But again, once I started using the heroin, that's when everything else just came obsolete to me. I used some type of substance for 40 years, but heroin was my drug of choice. Heroin is the drug that really started my downfall in my addiction. And I started using heroin at the age of like 23, 24, and on and off I used it ever since. I used other drugs prior to that, but heroin, when I started shooting it, it's when my life took a really downward spiral. It started downhill, and that's where it kept going.
Some of the signs of addiction are tolerance, where individuals use more than intended, oftentimes to the point that some could become lethal and die. Some individuals use despite known negative consequences. They have the tendency to recognize that if they have physical problems like high blood pressure, diabetes, they would continue using. There are individuals who would have a mental illness, and as a result of mental illness would use drugs and alcohol, and then thereby exacerbating the mental illness and causing, hopefully, that they would get themselves hospitalized to get stabilized.
The people that I was hanging around with, I watched them go steal all day, every day, come back to my house because my best friend's sister and her boyfriend were on their way to prison. So at that time, I was living at my best friend's house. So when they were getting ready to go to jail, they gave me the apartment. Because now I was always working. I kept a job. So I was able to move into that apartment and keep the rent going. But when they were in the apartment, it was a place where everybody went, stole all day long, and shot dope all night. So those people coming to my house, I just got impressed with their lifestyles and them using that heroin. It was just something about them, that crowd of people that stole all day long and shot dope the rest of the evening. So I got curious about the heroin. That's how I got started. I got really, really curious. And when they gave me the house, when I moved into that house, then people started coming there to my house. Therefore, I could get high free. And I started doing just that, getting high free. And that's what started the addiction. I was church secretary at the time. I got a murder charge during this time. Some of the friends that were coming to that house, it was just this one lady who was coming there. She lived in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and she would come to my house every day. She'd go steal all day and come to my house at night. So she told me one day, she said, I got to go to court next week. And she said, if I rob this guy, because I only know one person that I can get this money from that I need to go to court. She said, but if I rob him, I'm going to have to kill him. Well, we're sitting around getting high, so nobody's taking her serious at this point. But she actually went, killed the man, and everything that she did in this murder case, she put me in her place. So the police came to my house, because I didn't know what was going on at the time, but they came to my house and told me that I was under arrest for murder in the state of South Carolina, and I was a fugitive from justice. So they asked me if I wanted to waive my extradition so I could go to South Carolina. Of course I said yes, because I knew I hadn't done anything. So I waived my extradition. I went down there, and once I got to South Carolina, they brought her in the room with me while they were interrogating me, and she told them everything that she did in the robbery. She put me in her place, and my boyfriend at the time was put in the place of her boyfriend. She did the actual killing. She shot the man 3 times, head, neck, and chest, before he could put the car in park at the night depository at the bank, because this gentleman owned all the little generals in South Carolina at that time. So they brought her in the room. She told the story. They locked me up. So they came to me that Monday morning. This was like a Saturday night, all day Sunday, interrogating. They asked me if I was willing to go to South Carolina to take a polygraph. I had seen her prior when she told us she was going to do this. I was church secretary, so I was coming home from church this particular Sunday, and she was in my yard shooting a gun in my tree. And when I was being interrogated, they asked me the last time that I had seen her, and I explained to them that it was Palm Sunday. They wanted to know how I knew that. Because I was church secretary, I was raised in the church, and the Sunday before Easter Sunday, you get palms. So they took me to Columbia, South Carolina, down to SLED to take the polygraph. So the gentleman that administered the polygraph said that I know that that young lady, speaking about me, she didn't have anything to do with it. Now her friend, I don't know if he didn't know anything about it, but I know that he didn't do the killing. So at that point, they went back to Rock Hill, picked her up, brought her down to SLED where she confessed to the murder. But I had been in jail for 10 nights and 11 days on something that I knew absolutely nothing about. But my addiction was so out of control at that time, you would think that that would have deterred me from ever wanting to use heroin again, but it did just the opposite. I went straight home, bought some more dope, and got high some more. Continued to get high. Well, needless to say, I'm right back, to doing what I'm doing now. And I found out during this time that my mother had cancer, and my mother was in New York. So I left Charlotte and went to New York to take care of my mother. And I actually stopped using during this time because my mama needed my undivided attention. She was dying of cancer. And I was there 4 months. And Sunday morning, April 3rd, 1996, my mother called me in the room. I sit on the bed beside her. She laid her head on my shoulder. And all my mother wanted was for me to stop using drugs and be the person that she knew that I could be. Because my mother loved me so much. That was my best friend. We were so very close. She laid her head on my shoulder, started talking to me about helping out with my sister, and she died. Now, when my mother died, head on my shoulder, I was crushed. So automatically, I went back to doing what I was used to doing, just getting high. Because I used up everything. I used if I was happy, I used if I was sad. I used if I had a problem, I used if I didn't have a problem. Using is just what I did. So, and I changed geographical locations a lot. I've lived a lot of different places. I had a lot of good jobs, but I could never keep them because of that addiction. So I came back from New York and I started singing gospel, traveling with this gospel group. I did that for a while, but the addiction wouldn't allow me to continue to do that because I couldn't be on the road with this gospel group and use dope. So I quit the choir. I was reckless during my addiction because it didn't matter who I hurt. But see, but in my mind, I wasn't hurting anybody because I was getting what I needed. I was getting what I needed at the time. So if it meant not showing up or if it meant lying to get what I needed, because my dope habit was so bad, when I woke up sick, I wanted drugs by any means necessary. And by doing that, I wrecked my life, I wrecked my daughter, my family, because all I wanted to do was get high. But I was that person that always went to church and prayed no matter what, because I came from a praying, singing Christian family. So I was so reckless, I didn't care because I'd run in and out of stores all day long, putting my freedom on the line on a daily basis. I would put myself in situations that were not healthy. And then first and foremost, I played Russian roulette with my life. Because every time I put that needle in my arm, I didn't know if it was going to kill me or what? The person that I hurt the most in my addiction, other than myself, was my daughter. The daughter who I was never a mother to. You know, the daughter who, in my mind, as long as I sent her money when she asked me for it and was there financially for her, no matter what she asked me for, I made a way to get it. That is the person whose life I feel like I destroyed, because I was never, ever a mother to her. I didn't know how to be. My daughter was born when I was 15 years old. So I was a child myself when I had my daughter. She was taken from the hospital by my grandmother the following morning after I gave birth to her. So we never ever bonded, but I was never ever there, because by the time I got around to even attempting to be a mother, I was too strung out. The drug addiction had really taken over. And I didn't even know how to talk to my daughter. We'd have conversations, but we'd talk at each other. Because I held so much guilt and shame for the way that I had treated her, the way I had done her, that I just didn't know how to deal with her. And I really, really hurt her the most. So many times, my daughter expected me to show up. So many times, I'd tell her that I was going to show up. But my thing was, I had to get high first. So if I wasn't able to get high, then I could not show up. And I wouldn't show up. And I wouldn't feel bad about it until after I had gotten high. Then I could show up, but then it was always too late. Then the damage was already done. My daughter wanted to believe in me, but she just couldn't. Because I'd show up sometime, most of the time I wouldn't. I couldn't. Because I was very deep in my addiction.
Drug abuse affects the family in many ways. One of the challenges when a family has identified a substance abuser is that they have what is called these family systems and these stages that develop. One of the family issues that come up is called family dysfunction. And the dynamics that go on are there are different family roles that are played in the dysfunctional families. One would be the hero. The hero is identified as that individual whom everybody praises, who does well, who kind of sets the market for the family. Then there's the scapegoat, who's quite often blamed for the challenges that go on within the family. There's the enabler. This individual allows the addiction to continue, who supports the addicted person and defends the addicted person to large extremes. The addicted person is the individual that is identified, but yet is rarely addressed because for whatever reasons, the addicted person is providing some resource in order to keep the family going.
What brought me to the point where I knew that I had to have something different for my life was the fact that getting high became a job for me. It wasn't no fun in it anymore. You know, I was at a bottom that I didn't understand, but I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know where to turn. I had been getting high so long, that was all I knew. But I knew that I needed a change for my life. I knew that if I didn't do something when I did, then I was going to die out there in those streets, getting high, using drugs. And that's just not what I wanted for my life. I didn't want to die out there. I wanted something different. I wanted something different. So I went to a program where I could get it, you know? And when I got there, I surrendered. I needed somebody else to tell me what to do, somebody else to show me how to live, because I was just tired of existing. I was tired of sleeping on other folks' couches. I was tired of worrying about where I was going to sleep at night, because I go out and steal all day and then use all my money in drugs. And at the end of the day, I had absolutely nothing another day. Every day it was the same struggle. And I knew I had to have something different.
Some of the well-known things that adolescent teenagers get involved in would be alcohol, marijuana, Xanax, Adderall, taking medication from their peers, parents, that they don't know the side effects or what could happen. There's a big concern around that. One of the challenges and the risk that oftentimes get pushed away is some of the negative consequences that come as association of either the illegal or illicit activity of obtaining these medications. Most teenagers are not aware of the legal problems that come with it. So our challenge as professionals, as parents, is to continue to educate our teens on the decisions they're making and the long-term impact that it could have on not only them physically, but legally and medically.
I feel that teens may drink or do drug use because they maybe can't escape what's going on at home and they want to forget about it, or they just want to do it for the hype because everyone else does it.
I feel like teenagers do drugs just to fit in with the crowd. Sometimes it really don't be a reason, but if there is a reason, it's because they have family problems or they feel left out of social groups. And I saw one of my peers in school doing drugs, and I would never do them because I don't like seeing how she was reacting.
I think drugs and alcohol is very prevalent in schools because I had walked through the school one day and this girl asked me did I want to walk off campus and smoke.
I feel like drugs and alcohol are prevalent in school because most of the time, people when they walk around, you can smell it, or either they're trying to sell like brownies and stuff to people, and they don't even be knowing what's in it and stuff.
I believe that parent supervision has nothing to do with kids doing drugs and alcohol, because it can be a child who's loved and cared by their parents, but they still just follow what their friends do because it's peer pressure. If they see their friend doing it, they want to do it too.
I feel there's nothing really that any other parent can do about it or adult can do about it, because if you tell the child's parent, what if their parent already knows or allows it? So it's nothing that you can really do.
I don't feel like it's anything you could do either, because I know friends that smoke with their parents, or their parents tell them if you smoke at home, you can smoke at home, you don't have to smoke with your friends because they allow them to do it at home.
And even if the parent doesn't agree with the child smoking, it's not like they can just keep them locked up in the house forever to keep them from doing what they don't want them to do. I believe that most teenagers don't think about being addicted because they don't feel like they could be addicted. They just feel like they're just doing it for now and they can stop when they want to.
There are quite a few challenges through addiction. Oftentimes, individuals and family members would hope that one treatment episode would suffice an individual will remain abstinent and have long-term recovery. Unfortunately, we know that relapse is a part of recovery, and there are individuals who unfortunately have to go through challenges quite a few times before they make a honest, discerning decision around addiction and whether they want to continue to abstain. The challenges associated with continued is the pressure of staying clean and sober one day at a time. I think one of the things I would say to young folks that if they have experienced growing up in a dysfunctional home is to know that there's hope and there's a way out and there's a life ahead of you, that some of these challenges that you have experienced are not your fault. What I would hope that families, family members, individuals, those in recovery as well as those that are suffering in their addiction, is that to know that things can change and things do get better. One of the challenges is that I would encourage people to do is to talk to your family members. Don't hide the disease of addiction. It only grows in secrecy. That's one of the biggest challenges, is that parents do not want to talk about the dysfunction. They don't want to talk about the addiction. They don't want to address it and bring it outside of the doors. The longer you do that, the longer the disease of addiction wins.
I have been clean and sober for 27 months now.
I've been sober for about 2.5 months. 2.5 years.
Oh, I've been sober now 43 months. 43 months, and I feel great.
I have been drug-free for 31 months now.
I was put in jail was actually for child support, because I wasn't paying child support because I was spending my money on drugs. So I was put in jail for child support, and I met a guy in the jailhouse that told me about TROSA. I actually met two guys that told me about TROSA, and I did a little investigating while I was in there, and I had everything set up. And initially, the only reason I wanted to go was because I knew when I got out of jail I was going to be homeless and without anything. And I decided to come to the program. And it was within the first couple months that I realized that I really needed to, make a change and do what I, needed to do to get myself together. I have definitely forgiven myself for the things I've done. And I feel like most of my family, my mother has always been behind me, even through my addiction. A little bit of tough love here and there, but she's always stood by me. My kid's mother, she's always been behind me, and I've probably hurt her the most, in the past years than anybody else, and I feel like I've mended those bridges. In the next few years, I want to try to, I'm actually trying to become staff in the program I'm in, because I enjoy helping others. I enjoy helping my kids the same, and I'm in this community of addicts and people with problems, and I was in the same problem as they are. I'm still in the same problem as they are. And I enjoy helping them, and I want to see them succeed, as well as myself. And, I want to be successful. I want to be a good father to my children, and I want to be, an honest person that people care about and want to be around. And I think if I can do that in my life, that I would, I'll be happy with that, if that's all I can get done.
Well, I think you're on the road to success because there are people that care about you, and you have proven that you want to be a different man than you were 27 months ago, right?
Yeah, right.
And when I was getting sober, I noticed that I was really happy and that I really looked bad. I could see my ribs, and I really wanted to start taking care of myself, taking my vitamins and, taking care, brushing my teeth on the regular and, doing my hair and, just taking the time to cleanse myself and be all right, because I wasn't happy with the way I looked when I started getting clean. And I wanted to look better, how I used to look before in those pictures. My mom has all these old pictures of how I used to look. I wanted to get back to that, and I just actually came to realize how it just destroyed me, and I just didn't even know the whole time. I got to TROSA. My mom found TROSA on the news. They were following some guy, doing a story on him. So that's how I came to TROSA, because of my mom. My recovery is definitely, number one, which is, keeping God first, staying in my word, and staying connected with a church, paying my tithes, just living a calm, normal life. I want to get my license back. I'm working on that now. I'm just staying away from those same people, places, and things. I'm going to make a new life here in Durham. I'm not going back home. I don't want to relive that anymore. I'm going to stay connected with friends that are doing the same thing I'm doing. And when they decide not to do the things I'm doing, I will leave them behind, because I've noticed that, you take you everywhere you go. So what's important is working on me and keeping me together, because I got to keep myself together for my son. I want to show him a better life, knowing that you can live happy without, using something. My main thing for me is putting God first. I'm very, strict on that and focusing on that because, he brought me through so many times, Who am I to deny him? So I've forgiven myself about 18 months ago. I had no choice but to forgive myself because that was in the past and I knew it wasn't me. I knew it was the drugs and the alcohol taking over my mind. And when you got those strongholds on you, you can't do anything. You're not yourself. Now I know I'm me and I never want to go back to that life because it's like the longest time that I've actually had clean, got my head clear, and I had a lot of therapy and a lot of different, medications, to help me through the things. And I love the life I live now, so I've forgiven myself. It's nothing but, up from here. And I've gotten closer to God in this process, and that has carried me through this whole thing because he was looking out for me this whole time because I was destroying myself. The things I've done, I should have been dead, but I'm here for a reason and I got to do something different. And I'm not by myself. I got my son, so I got somebody to teach to be better, what not to do. I definitely feel that I have my self-respect back today and, even respect back from a lot of people or my family. They just trust me more, and then I trust myself around them and around their pocketbooks, anybody's pocketbooks, even around stuff that I like that somebody else has. I trust myself. I know I'm not going to do anything because that's not me anymore. I'm actually thinking. I got a clear head. I got a conscience too, so. You do wrong things happen to you. Do good things happen to you. And good people always come out on top. So, I'm definitely happy today. I laugh and smile. I was angry at it. I wasn't happy at all, and I thought I was the happiest thing on earth then. But yeah, I'm definitely happy now. I'm blessed.
It wasn't until I came to a 2-year program that I realized and I got sober that I was the reason for everything that happened in my life. I had blamed everybody else, but instead of looking at the man in the mirror, which was me. That's when I did break down and cry, and I told the Lord, I thank you for opening up my eyes. I said, I don't know what made, he knew what to say to my cousin to make me come in here to this program. And then once I got in here, he used me and opened up my eyes to say, Darryl, this is a better life for you. You are a chosen one. And I believe that to this day, and I thank him every day for it because I was at a crossroad. And like I said, I had that alcohol gene in me on my daddy's side and on my mama's side. And I know I can see him now. That he done opened my eyes where I can see the devil now, and I can see him coming from a mile away. And I know it, and that's why I say I thank him. I mean, it's been 43 months since I took a drink, and I feel good. I look a little better than I was looking back then, and I can see myself better in the mirror. I'm proud to look in the mirror now, because when I was looking in the mirror before, I was seeing a person whose face was shrinking up. I wasn't weighing nothing but 140 pounds. Now I'm at 195. The importance of my recovery to me right now in this point in my life, it's everything. I praise the Lord every morning I wake up and every night when I go to sleep, that he makes me stronger in my recovery. But I feel like my self-respect is coming right back. Stuff like I'm doing right now is building my confidence back up and giving me something to really work for. That's why I'm wanting to help out and do as much as I can for the next person to make sure that they let them know that we can overcome this stuff if you want to. Right now, I like where I'm at. I like the way my life is turned around. I'm in a better position than I was 4 years ago. I'm in a way better position than I was. But I like to go ahead and do some counseling work and help people that have the same problem that I do did and help some people to overcome this thing, because that's what I want to do now. I want to devote my life now to trying to give back, to help somebody. I just can't keep this thing to myself. I got to let it go, and I got to give, what is it, pay it forward, something like that. I got to give back. You know, I had to reach out and pull somebody else up. I just can't go alone. And that's what I feel I need to do. I feel that's the reason why the Lord put me in this position, so I can give back to some others and help them out. Yeah.
Keeping my recovery is what I have to do for my life now. Because by getting my recovery, I've learned to love myself again. And by me being able to love myself, others can love me. You know, and I can be a friend, I can be a mother, I can be who I need to be now, because I finally know who I am through my recovery. Through my recovery, I know how to live now. I was merely existing all these years. But by getting my recovery, I am getting whole. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I am happy for once in my life. I'm happy, and now I'm able to just deal with life on life's terms, no matter what. As long as I don't pick up and use drugs, it's going to be all right. As long as I don't pick up, it's going to be fine. It will work itself out. As long as I stay out of my way and let God take charge of my life, keep him first and foremost in my life, everything is going to be all right. My dreams and my aspirations for the future are, first of all, keeping recovery first and foremost in my life. I want to stay on and keep doing what I'm doing, because this is what's working for me at this point. And I feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm good, I'm safe. I am interested in taking a peer support specialist class, because I want to continue to help other people. That's what I want to do going forward. I am getting ready to register for a phlebotomy class so that I can have something as far as a career is concerned. I am happy, and yes, I have been able to forgive myself, and that's why I am happy. I'm happy now because people can trust me. My word means something now. I have self-respect now, and others respect me. And I am the person that I know that God meant for me to be. I'm still a work in progress. I have a long way to go, but I'm just so grateful that I'm not where I used to be. No, I'm not where I want to be right now. But I'm going to keep moving forward, keep working on myself, keep being honest, keep helping others, keep talking to people. When I have a problem, I don't have to use over it anymore. I know that now. I know that I can go to somebody and talk to somebody. And I do know that I might not get the answers that I need. It might not turn out the way I think it should, but I know that it will be all right. Yes, I'm truly happy today. I'm truly happy. Because God brought me a long way. And I'm grateful to be here to talk to you today. I'm grateful. It is never too late to change your life. If you want to change, change is available to you. But you gotta want it. You gotta want it.
Hi, I'm Antoinette. And we've had opportunity to open the door and peek into the lives of individuals that have been broken and trapped in addiction. You see, they were sabotaging their life. But not only were they sabotaging their life, they were sabotaging the lives of their family, their friends, and even their children. Sometimes what happens behind closed doors should not always remain hidden. Hidden addictions will not bring you healing. Hidden addictions will only destroy the person and their loved ones. We recognize that it's no small task for an addict to come to a place where he says that I want to be set free, I want to change my lifestyle, I want out of this prison. It's no small task for an addict to get to a place where he says, I'm dying, I need help. Allegra, Teresa, Richard, and Daryl did. They got to a place where they said, I'm sick and tired of just being broken. I'm sick and tired of being addicted. But there is a word of hope in the midst of any addiction, whether it be drugs or alcohol. There is a word of hope. And that word of hope is that chains can be broken. You can be set free. You don't have to be bound to a lifestyle of crime, addiction, and destruction. You can be set free. God can set you free.
My chains are gone. I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And life